on nervous and muscular tissue. So before we proceed, first of all, we have to outline the objective that we are supposed to cover over today. And precisely with the consistency, I'm very sure that by the end of the month, possibly we will be able to have covered a wider range in even the semester which is subsequent that is coming next. So let us just be hopeful and accord the maximum effort that we can take. So those people who are locked out from the meeting, we are not going to allow them in because my screen, I can't access those guys who are outside. Yeah, unless I try, let me try because I've already started recording already. Okay, let me admit them. Okay, now okay, so it's fine. So the first objective, we will check on features. What features do most or all connective tissues have, and that is what we already initiated before. But when you have completed this section, you should be able to explain what distinguishes excitable tissues from other tissues, and therefore you'll need to understand what is excitation. Then you'll be able to also name cell types that compose nervous tissue exactly. And from there, we'll also be able to identify the major parts of nerve cells. Visible recognizes nervous tissue from specimen or photograph. If you are shown like instantly when you go to the lab and then maybe in the hospital and then you're given a photograph. So you need to be able to identify. Yeah, you need to recognize a nervous tissue. And then on the same objective, we are going to be able to name the three kinds of muscular tissue and describe the differences between them. And finally, we'll also be able to visually identify any type of muscular tissue from specimen or photograph. So that is nervous and muscular just in general. And now I just want you to answer the following before we commence. First of all, I would like somebody to just tell us what he understands by nervous tissue, then neurons, then neuroglia, then glial cells, then soma, dendrites, and axons. So let's start because an open discussion that is. So we start by, let's see who is around. Yes, Florence Beth, what do you understand by nervous tissue? What do you understand by nervous tissue? Anybody who can say anything about nervous tissue so that we don't waste good time? Franklin Otieno, say anything. Yeah, thank you. They are mainly found in the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, another person with anything about the nervous tissue? Oh, that is all. Because I was thinking that we are enlightened enough. When you talk about nervous tissue, you can talk about almost everything that is in front of you. You can say it is composed of neuron, neuroglia, glial, soma, all these one. There are many things about that you can speak when it comes to nervous tissue. So well, so good. So I'll do the teaching up to the end. Now, this is a very short lesson. You can even cover 20 minutes before we go to the next chapter. So all that I need you to know or to adhere to is that you need to know what is excitation or excitability, and that is a key thing here. I don't know why these people are very late. They are making me admit them for good. Okay, you're now all of you are inside. Now, what is excitability? Who can tell us what is excitability? What is excitability? Let's have anybody. Peter Moranga. What do you understand by excitability of muscle or nervous cells? Excitability, what do you understand by it? From the title of what you're seeing in front of you. Okay. Speak. Yeah, we are getting you. Speak. Yeah, you're very okay. It's okay. You are good. Up to there, that is recommendable. That is a commendable attribute. So, any other person who can say anything apart from what Were has told us? So, if you're all good, then let's proceed. Now, what I want us to know, or maybe just to add on, is that excitability is a characteristic of all living cells. Yeah, but it's developed. So, its highest degree in nervous and muscular tissue is always the most influential one. And the most key thing that you need to know, therefore, you need to describe this muscle nervous as excitable tissue to mean that these are characteristic of all living cells, but the muscles and the nerves are the one which elaborately express it. Like for instance, yourself, if you're poured on a cold water, definitely you will respond. So that cold water will excite you so that you can elicit the response. That is that. I don't know if I'm audible enough. Yeah, let me remove my camera. Maybe that one can be barricading my network. So that is that. This guy is with Jenny. Okay, let's proceed. Again, another thing that I needed to know that the basis for the excitation is an electrical charge differences. So when you talk about difference, to mean that there is two places which you compare one another with, like external and internal, inside the cell and outside the cell. So we compare the charges between one side of the cell and the other. So the differences is what now give us that electrical charge voltage, or what we refer to as the membrane potential. That is the entire basis of a cell being excited. Even the slight cell of your body which has got nerve sense cells, that is like for instance your skin, it has got some nerve endings which detects changes in maybe environmental factors such as temperature stimulants like coldness, hotness, and pain as well. So, however much can be very small, but it will have that adherence. There must be electrical charge difference for them to elicit that excitability. So, this membrane potential will have what we call the the electrical charge differences or voltage for them to give us the basis for the excitation. So this one normally occurs across the plasma membrane of all cells actually. But now nervous and muscular tissue respond more quickly to outside stimuli by means of changes in membrane potential more than any other tissue that is in general. So in nerve cell, these changes result in the rapid transmission of signal to other cells, just the way Were said it initially. But in muscle cells, they result in contraction or shortening of the cell. So you have to know the two difference between what happens in the nerve cells and the one in the muscle cells. So when it talks about the nerve cells, the changes will just keep a wave of information through electrical signals. But contrary, when now we come to muscle cells, they will contract and shorten. And then when this wave is over, they will relax. So the basis of the movement or operation of muscle just because of the contraction and shortening, which is also aided by the filament that we have, the thin and the thick filament, the myosin and the actin. So let us now go directly into nervous tissue. That was just a basis layout of what we want to talk about, both on the title of what you're seeing here, nervous and muscular tissue. So let us go to nervous tissue, and I need you to know that nervous tissue consists of what you are seeing on the screen: the neurons, the neuroglide, the glial cells, the soma, the dendrites, axonal nervous cells. So we need to talk about each of them. Now, I want one of you to tell us what he knows, anything that you can say about neuron. Unaweza hata kusema ni kamba, no problem. But let us talk. So somebody somewhere, let's start with the neurons. What do you understand by neurons? Thank you. That's so precise and up to the letter. That is nice. Another person? Anyone who can tell us anything about neuroglia? Yeah, that's very sure. So, yeah, it consists of the cell body and the axon and the processes. Another person to tell us what is neuroglare. We are targeting 20 minutes to be over with this short content. Nobody knows about neuroglare? Medical student fraternity, you guys. Okay, glial cells. What about soma? Hey, you can say any which you think you know among them. Okay, fine, let's proceed. Yeah, they are entirely called, they are like supportive structure, I hope so, right? So let's check them. And I know when you'll be in the unit of nervous system, we are going to see them, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and we are going to learn a lot. I'm very sure. I'm very, very sure. Together, we are going to learn a lot. That is the basis of what we have today. So I want to talk about the nervous tissue. It consists of the neuron. The nervous tissue has neuron, or what we can call the nerve cells. Actually, the other name of neuron is nerve cells, and it's much greater number of neuroglia, that is glial cells, which now give that protection ability. So they protect and assist the neuron. So this neuroglial and the glial cells, they are the same thing. The entire name of what Dan was telling us, those the macroglia, the satellite cells, the dendrocyte cells, their main name is what we call the neuroglial or the glial cells. You can see I've indicated on the display presentation neuroglia and glial cells. So we'll check on them. Now, another key thing is that neurons, they are specialized. Now, just like any other specialized cells, when you are in high school, in form, that was in form one, last topic, specialization, cell specialization. You realize that specialization is just somehow differentiation and coordination of a cell to perform a specific function effectively. In this case, the same is applied. Neurons are specialized to detect stimuli and respond to them quickly. And after responding to them, they transmit those coded information rapidly to other cells. And now each neuron has a prominent what we call soma. And in front of you can see what I've written soma. Soma is what you normally know, it's only that this is just another name. So I was supposed to write in front there cell body so that you be familiar. So soma is a cell body of the neuron. So the main function of the cell body, we all know that it houses the nucleus and the most other organelles which are ever there. And I'm sure if I gave you time to at least tell me one of the organelles that you find in the soma, you will tell us. Apart from the nucleus, what do you think? What do we have in the soma? Somebody? Somebody? Yeah, cytoplasm must be there. Another thing again, mitochondrion is supposed to be there, right? Yeah, and vesicles. You know, a cell, there are some component of a cell that will never miss, and if they miss, the cell will be dead. So don't forget that. We are just highlighting on this because this is actually not nervous system, but we are going to reach into nervous system and we discuss greatest. So I've said there, the soma itself, it houses the nucleus, and you know the function of nucleus, it partake in controlling all the cell activities, and this is the cell center of genetic control. It has hereditary material just like any other normal nucleus. And a protein synthesis also takes place in the same. So somas or the cell body, they are usually round. You can see at sometimes they are oval, right? Or some are ovoid or starlet in shape. And again, you don't expect to see them every day round when you're using a microscope. So one day, most of you will be even great people, radiographers with details, caliber, and all that. So you'll be subjected to a lot of research. And again, so you expect someone to be round, not every day, or all the cells or nerve cells will appear with the soma which is round. So I've said it is control, and because it is the epitome of genetic control, so it also controls the protein synthesis of the nerves. So if a nerve is destroyed, the nerve cell is destroyed, the coordination and programming sequence that generate the protein synthesis mechanism, the protein itself, synthesis of protein, it comes from the soma. So in any way, if the cell body is damaged, the regeneration process can also be hindered. So at most, it's better the axon be damaged. There will be regeneration at high pace, but not the soma. And now, again, another thing that I needed to know, that somas are usually round, and I've told you that, and so don't forget, but not all of them are round. Now, they are usually multiple. Somehow they are short. Some of them have processes. And what do we call these processes? Processes that come from the soma. What do we call them? Yeah, you're right. Dendrites. Dendrites. That is dendrites. Let me add some individuals. They are waiting for long. Okay, thank you. So that is that. So I've said, and you've said, we have dendrites, right? So what is the function of dendrite? Can somebody tell us the function of dendrites? Somebody somewhere to tell us the function of dendrites? Yeah, the main function is that, yeah, they receive and they contain the incoming action potential. So you can just say the signals. Don't kill yourself. It's just the signal. The action potential has got the electrical charges. That is the signal. So the dendrites, their main function, that they receive signals from the cells and they will transmit message to the cell body. That is the soma. So you can find a nerve cell as a single process, that is a single dendrite, that is axon, much longer maybe than axon. So if they are single and very much longer, we can call them axon or maybe nerve fiber. So when I mean nerve fiber, is similarly meaning axon. And then this one will now send outgoing signal to other cells. And again, you need also to know that some axons are more than a meter long. So don't expect that every day axons are short. Some of them are very long. Some are even longer than you, right? So they don't terminate at the synapse. Some of them just maintain a longer length. So that is that. Now, and if they extend, they can even extend. Depending with that, a bit of high length, you realize they can extend from the brainstem to the foot. So they don't need to baffle around transmitting information by gapping into the synapse and communicating through the chemical communication. So nervous tissue, another thing which is important, that nervous tissue, they are found in those regions where Moses Were said, the brain and the spinal cord, the nerves and the ganglia. They are found in the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves, and the ganglia. Those are the 4 areas where you'll find the nerve cells or the neurons. Brain, spinal cord, nerves, and ganglia. And now to summarize on the nervous tissue before we go to muscular tissue, I want you to know that they always form something like knot-like swellings in nerves. So when you want to note, when you're using, like the photo which I'm going to show you right away, you'll see how it looks like. When you're using a microscope or maybe a fine electron microscope, you realize that where there is a knot-like swelling is where we found the nerves. Kindly mute yourself because we are actually online. Yeah. So we always have what we call local variation in the structure of nervous tissues, and we are going to see how they vary from one tissue to another. So that is that. But before we go on to the next, I want you to check on your screen and see what I was talking about. You see that? That is now soma. You can see from your hand. We have nuclei of the ganglia. They are the glial cells, which are the supportive structure, which we had talked about also as we were introducing the entire thing. You realize they have also their nuclei. Then we have an axon which extends from the soma of the neuron. And we have the processes which are multiple. We call them the dendrites. And at same B, you realize there's an image of someone with a posterior view showing a direct notochord containing a spinal cord from the brain stem towards the tail, I think, some sort of. So that is that. And the next, what we are going to see the next, okay, that is what we are going to see. Right here now we are going to see, we have already done the nervous, now we are going to do muscular tissue. And then after muscular tissue, we'll break for 10 minutes and then we'll come back for the next part of the histology. I think we're going to conclude with histology so that we can start the next the second semester, to majority of you, the second semester content by next week. And so the timetable for the second, the next week, the entire daily activity timetable of the video classes will be out by today evening, so that you will keep time and you'll know when to join the classes. Now let's check something to do with the muscular tissue. We first join this guy. Okay, we are good to proceed. Now, you've been around the information about muscle for quite longer than even nervous tissue. And so I just want someone to tell us what he or she understands by the word muscular tissue. Anything will be appreciated by us. Muscular tissue can give us a detail or even a brief information about muscular tissue. Anybody? Thank you. That is good. Thank you for that. It is composed of 3 muscles, that is cardiac, skeletal, and smooth. Any other person, again, with an additional? There are many things you can talk about in muscles. You know them, right? You can even say they help you in moving. They're so lay, but it is important. Somebody? Mhm. Wow, thank you so much. That is so delightful, and I really like that. Thank you so much. Yeah, hope do we have any other additional or maybe subtraction? Some. Okay, we're good to proceed. Now it's obvious that you cannot move without your muscle, and when you're doing history taking, at most, especially in surgical history taking, the one which involves surgery. So you have to consider the fact that if at all it's a case of a trauma, what are the possible limitations that this patient is going to have, so that you can manage or treat the condition from what the patient fears the most. Kama anapenda kupanda stairs and the muscles, let's say the calf muscles are tampered with, so you'll just start by there. Or if it's a modeler, you know where to start. So the entire thing is that you need to know in general terms that muscles function is so generous, movement, supportive, and so on, so even defense just on muscles. So let's go into detail, but remember this is histology, not musculoskeletal system. So we're just going to cover it brief, but then when we reach the point of when you'll be studying the muscle and all the skeletal system, we are going to check on that. So here you can see in front of you, we have skeletal muscles, fibers, sphincter, striation, cardiac muscles, myocyte, intercalated disc, and smooth muscles. So that is generally what we are going to evaluate today. So beginning, you need to know that muscle tissue consists of elongated cells that are specialized, just like any other specialized cells. That is just like your sperm is specialized, right? Just like your the parenchymal tissue of your lungs or the alveolus are special. So even muscular tissue, they have to be specialized. But specifically, the muscles of the legs are just specialized for that main purpose. The muscles of your arm or the brachium is just made for that. Okay. So I've said they have elongated cells that are specialized to respond to stimulation by contracting. They are not specialized to relaxing. Relaxing is just a freely or a passive restoration of contraction. So at most, the impulse which is sent to the muscle normally stimulates you to contract and not to relax. So when you'll be talking about the agonism and the synergism and the antagonism, all those ones, you'll see how those muscles behave. So again, I need you to know that the primary job is to exert physical force on other tissues and organs. For example, what do I mean by this? Instantly, when a skeletal muscle pulls on a bone, the heart, for instantly, the heart contracts and expels blood, right? Or when a force is given to the bladder, the urinary bladder, that is, it will contract and expel urine. So mostly the main function apart from movement is just to exert the force on other tissues or organs. Skeletal muscles pulls on the bone, the heart will contract and expel blood. When a bladder is given a force to contract, expel urine, and so on, so on and so forth. And not only do movements of the living body or maybe body part or the limbs depend on muscle, but so do such other many other activities which we are going to check. The processes such as digestion, waste elimination, breathing, speech, blood circulation, right? So you need to know that the muscles are so an important source of body heat also, because when you are in high school, you talked about the water of metabolism, and you talk about during cold temperature when you are doing informed to homeostasis, expression and homeostasis. You talk about the shivering, which initiated sequence of muscular contraction. By that, because contraction uses energy, and the product of energy is normally heat. You see, therefore you preserve yourself. So it's a very important source of body's heat, and that is why the fat, which are the brown fat in the infant, is always referred to the most suitable source of it, because they will develop later to muscles. But before then, they are always found as fat because of that contraction sequence. Because a baby doesn't have muscle at the beginning, but those brown fat will now represent that. So even if uko kwa midwifery or maybe kwa maternity ward and then you're delivering a baby, the first thing you'll do, in fact, after the stage 4 of delivery, you remember, utamcover when you're monitoring the pph and so on and so forth, the vital sign of the mother. But the baby must be covered to preserve the temperature, because he only have fat. But if he had muscles, the temperature could be well sorted. So the word muscles, I want you to know, the word muscles means little mouse. That is where hapo nilitoka. The word muscles means little mouse, apparently referring to the appearance of rippling muscles under the skins. So that is where they come. You see, when you are a baby or when you are young, I remember myself when I was young. Somebody could come, like, oh, your younger boy or so, maybe a sibling can come and knock your, let's say, bicep. Then you'll see some ripple movement of vitu, alafu nazita panya panya, mwana panya. I don't know. We used to say that, and we used to say, oh yeah, yo. So that is where the name came from, little mouse. And you can go and research more about that, but the muscles means little mouse. Now, there are three histological types of muscles, the way one is one of you, Dan, somebody said. And one of the three types is skeletal muscles. We have cardiac muscles, and we have smooth muscles. So, can somebody tell us anything about skeletal muscles? Another person tell us anything about cardiac muscles and then smooth muscles? We are almost done. That is good, because we are going to finish before 35 minutes elapses. So anyone? So say talk about skeletal muscles kidogo, the smooth muscles. Mhm. Thank you. That's so good. The voluntary. You will also tell us what is that before we go to any other person will tell us now about the other. Tell us please. Who is talking, please? Okay, come up, please. We've not gotten what you're saying. Wow, that's so good. So they are connected to bones and all that. So they communicate, unlike the smooth muscles, which I am sure they are not connected to bones, right? But they move along the bone. That is right. Any other person additional or maybe suppression, or any other person will talk about the cardiac and smooth muscles? Yes, oh, yes, of course. I think you're saying the right thing, though you are not audible enough. Sijasikia vizuri, but we are good to go, right? So any other person will talk about smooth muscles? Okay, smooth muscles. Let me mute that person who is making noise. Yeah, thank you. You've muted yourself. So, Mark Maina, tell us what you are saying about smooth muscles. Yes, thank you so much. He has talked about kind of, receptor action, mechanism of receptor toward the contraction, yeah, the calmodulum with the calcium channel, how they are excited by that. That is also important in this chapter. And we are going to see more of the effect of calcium if we reduce it and if we increase it, and how we can help some medical condition. But that is later when you read nervous system. So here we go. I think up to there, no more division. I just add any other 1, 2, 3 about that, and then you see if that's the end. So I've said there are three histology of types of muscles: the skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, and they have to be different. That is why they have different names. So they define appearance, they define physiology, and they also define function. So skeletal muscles consist of long cylindrical cells called muscle fibers. That is skeletal muscles, and most of it is attached to bones, just the way one of you said. But there are exceptions. For example, the tongue. You know, tongue is a muscle, right? But it is not attached to any bone, right? It has got something hyoid, but that hyoid doesn't have anything to do with it. You'll just check on that after this one. You check the image of the tongue and how it's connected. Another one is upper esophagus. It's somehow muscular in nature, but it's not attached to anything. And some fascial muscles as well, and some sphincter. So, what is a sphincter? What is a sphincter? Somebody tell us what is a sphincter? What is a sphincter? Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're right. That's a very nice statement. Who can tell us another thing about sphincter? There are still many ideas. Okay. Tell us, please. Tell us. Wow, that's a so wonderful thing. First of all, you've given us the structure is a ring like, yeah, structure, right? So that's so good. That's so good. So the important thing here is that a sphincter is just a muscle, the way you guys have gotten right. The ring like or a cuff like muscle that open and closes body passages. And so that is all about the sphincter. I also need to know that the cells that contain multiple nuclei adjacent to the plasma membrane can also be part of the the skeletal muscles. So at most, some of the cells will be very ideal to identify whether it is muscles or skeletal or smooth muscles. Again, skeletal muscles is always described as striated and voluntary. So I want you to tell us what is striated and voluntary. Because in exams, you'll be told to distinguish the following, and then you're given an image. So you have to note which one is striated and which one isn't. So that is why even seeing the image of an striated muscle or skeletal is important. So somebody tell us, what is being striated, the fact that is term striated, what is it, and what is voluntary? We are listening. Okay, striated is highly organized and voluntary, you can control it. To mean you do it voluntarily. Okay, any other person with addition or subtraction? Yes, you have to decide. I'm getting the point. You have to decide when you want to move. Like when you want to snatch somebody his phone. Let's say no, that is not your behavior. What you really need, no. Some of us really knew how to snatch people more Kenya in exams room. So that one is voluntarily. It's not even demon because if you go to disciplinary committee, you are like Satan alinijaribu. So anyway, it's voluntarily. What I'm trying to say is your own will the way our colleague has said or put it. Yeah. So that is that. I think this is all lay and we all know it, right? So the first term that is striated, you can also say it refers to alternating light and dark bands. So you'll see some strips striated, imekatwa katwa, iko na light and dark bands. So these are just alternating light and black bands, or what we call striations. Striations, right? They are created by what? They are created by the overlapping pattern of cytoplasmic protein filament. And I know you know this cytoplasmic protein filament. So this one, they cause the muscles to contract. That is why in the skeletal muscles there are too many, because skeletal muscles, they contract rapidly. The second name which I've said is voluntary. We can say voluntary refer to the fact that we usually have conscious control over skeletal muscles. Even your bladder. However, your bladder, when you're going to pass out or release urine, at most, you start by there are a lot of mechanisms behind releasing urine. However, we have that voluntarily in some extent, but immediately you initiate it, controlling it. Ndio maana wengine wakianza kukojoa wanaweza hata achwa, because controlling it now, shortening it, does not just take one muscle. It's a lot of collaboration. And at your free time or where you are, you can put that down and then you check mechanism behind emptying of bladder. So that is all about the skeletal muscles for now, but remember, we still have almost 1 week lesson to go and do with all these nerves and muscular tissue. So let's check on cardiac muscles in its way. Now, what is cardiac muscles? Anybody, please? Thank you. That's so brief and nice. Muscle of the heart, from the word cardiac, heart, muscles, right? Any other person? You can say the structure, the composition, the function. Wow, thank you. The point of intercalated disc, like in the previous section, we talked about the intercalated disc, and we also saw the importance of this disc. Now, cardiac muscle is essentially limited to the heart only. That is why our first guy said these are muscles of the cardiac, and he never had any story. He just said that is that, and that is that, and it is true. They're only limited in the heart, unless you're another species. So it is, however, limited in that, but you need also know that it extends slightly into the nearby blood vessels. So it has also striated. The only muscle which is not striated, you'll see it is smooth muscle. So the ones which contract rapidly, because I told you the light and dark bands are so important in contraction. The ones which contract rapidly at most, they are ever striated. So the cardiac muscles, I've said, it is limited in the heart alone, and it extends slightly into the nearby blood vessels. It is too striated, right? But it differs from the skeletal muscle. So don't have it to look like the skeletal muscles. Like in many other features of it, it is different from the skeletal muscles. Its cells are much shorter in a way, so they are commonly called the myocytes. So when you see, I've given you in my display there myocyte. Myocyte means the nature of the cells, they are very shorter in a nature. But just in simple, myocyte means the muscle, the cells of the muscles. Myocyte, cells of the muscle. But now the myocytes of cardiac are somehow unique in a way, right? So instead of us calling them fibers like any other connective tissue the muscular way, we call them fibers. Here we call them myocytes because they are short like just the muscles of normal, the cells of normal muscles. And these myocytes are branched and they contain one nucleus only one nucleus, which is located near the center. So ukiangalia vizuri utaona, you know why I'm giving all this descriptive analogy? When you are expressed or maybe given a lab report with an image, or maybe a radiographic report, yeah, CT scan sample, a defined tomographic, whatever the PET, you will have to diagnose by your eyes. So you'll have to interpret the photograph. So you need to know what all these I'm saying. So I've said these myocytes of cardiac muscles, they are branched, yes. And alongside their branching, they only contain one nucleus, which is located near the center. And we also, when you talk about, there is always somehow light staining region of glycogen that's around the nucleus. So when you check the nuclear clear, you see some light staining of glycogen. And the good thing is that after this lesson, you go and do some research on the images so that at least you become completely fortified without any remnant. A good thing again is cardiac myocytes, they are joined end to end by junction, which one of us called intercalated disc, and that is the last point, second last point we are going to talk about. So the intercalated disc. So who can tell us what is this intercalated disc? Are we together? Are you there? Are you there? Okay. Am I audible? Can somebody say yes? Oh, so the problem is not my sound, but the problem is intercalated disc. Okay, let me talk about it. So, oh, tell us the idea. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. They connect. They don't want this. They don't want this the myocytes to be loosely or maybe communicate to another myocytes by some Z-shaped disc like in skeletal muscles, or maybe they don't want to give a space between the muscles. I'll tell you the reason for that in the other chapter. So this intercalated disc. So when electrical connections or electrical connection ile tu ya kawaida, these junctions, they enable a wave of excitation to travel rapidly from a cell to cell. And that mechanical connection which we have by the intercalated disc, right? They will keep the myocyte from pulling apart when the heart contracts. That is one. And the electrical junction will allow all the myocyte of heart chamber, right, to be stimulated and contract almost simultaneously. So I want you to know those 2 points. One, they'll prevent the cardiac muscle from pulling apart when the heart contract. The second, the electrical junction with the intercalated discs, that allow, that is, when the electrical, conduction or maybe the electrical impulses, right, in the chamber, when they are given into the chamber, they will stimulate the entire cardiac muscles and they will contract almost simultaneously as they are supposed to do without any space because they are all communicated by the intercalated disc. So this intercalated disc appears dark transverse line separating each myocyte. So when you check them clean, you see, I'll show you some image after this from the next, and then you see. So they may also be, they also be only faintly visible at some point, yeah. However, unless the tissue has been specially stained for them, you can be able to see them. So cardiac muscle is considered involuntary because it is not usually under conscious control, unlike the skeletal muscles. So it contracts even if all the nerve connection to it are severed, zimeharibika, zimebondwa, it will still contract. And that is what gives us the courage of speaking right now. That is what gives us the courage that one day we'll finish or you will finish your course, right? And our journey will be successful because we are very sure that we are going to live. We are not controlling our heart. It was purposed to beat forever. And if you just take a moment at times and then you listen, then it's like, hey, what if my heart just stopped right now? You will end up the entire day having that similar thought. So at most, that courage is given to us by nature itself. Yeah, and so to those people who believe, like I say, God, right? So let's talk about smooth muscles a bit. Smooth muscles, the end of this, and then we call it a day. So smooth muscles. So what about smooth muscle? Can somebody tell us anything about smooth muscles? I'm adding those people who are very late, and they are going to just join in a few. Yes, they are cone-shaped in structure. Another person, that is good. Thank you. Another person again. That's so good. Yeah, you can say anything, but okay, let us just finalize. So smooth muscle, yeah, they are non-straighted. Thank you. They are non-straighted, right? Are they voluntarily or involuntarily? Thank you. They are involuntary. So it means only muscle which is voluntary. Mhm. Okay. Wow, that's so nice, right? So it can help in controlling some of the metabolism process. That's all right. No, this house normally is scary, so big. So nikisikia kitu inapiga huko nje. Okay, let's proceed. Smooth muscles lack striations and it is involuntary. And the smooth muscles here, what you said cone shape, you can call it fusiform, right? Or fusiform, or you'll call that is Fusiform. Right? But what is the meaning of fusiform? Something fusiform is thick in the middle and it is tapered at the end. So inakaa kama, let me see, mwogo ile imechongwa, mwogo ile imechongwa mwisho yake mbele na nyuma iko sharp in both edges. That is tapered. So katikati imenona. That is what smooth muscles look like. So if you see an image and you see something fusiform, that is smooth muscles. So at most it is relatively short also when you compare it like with the skeletal muscles, as they have only one, that is centrally placed nucleus, just like cardiac heart. And so the small amount of smooth muscle are normally found in the iris of the eyes, upper iris. I know you did that one when you are doing in Form 4 response and coordination. When you are doing to do with accommodation, right? You saw the iris could adjust depending with the distance of the object. So that is a muscular effect. So you can have said that smooth muscles, some of them are found, the small amount of smooth muscle are found in the iris of the eye and in the skin also. And then where would we find most of it? In the visceral muscles. And what are these visceral muscles? Visceral towards organs and the cavity that encloses the organs. We gave the name visceral just from the original and the nomin or what we call the anatomical nomenclature of the original of organs. We call the visceral. So the visceral muscles, that is where we find large number of smooth muscles. So they form layers in the walls, that is, we have already known of the digestive, respiratory system, urinary tract, they will form walls. Against smooth muscle will form walls of blood vessels, right? The uterus, like in uterus, you know, we have, okay, can somebody tell me by the way, this is a question. The walls, what are the names? There are three layers of the uterine wall. Which one and which one and which one? And which one is basically smooth muscles among them? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the endocardium and the endocardium is the one which is somehow smooth in nature, and then those ones have fibrous tissue and blah blah blah. So that is that. So yeah. Oh, he's talking about, by the way, I was even forgetting. Okay, you're right. Endocardium is he has confused us, eh? So very good. Tell us endometrium. Do you remember the endometrium? Endometrium. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are there was, we believe in one another in a way that, yeah, you're very right. You're very right. Thank you, my sister. You're very right. So, and we have in the endometrium, we have two types of tissue, the cells, right? We have two types of them. One is called basal, and another one is called. Which one is more effective during menstruation? The one which is shedded off. Are we together? Ama hapo umepotea? Within the endometrium, there is an active layer which is actively proliferating, yeah? And there's another layer which is just relaxing. Actually, this one, or the other name, this decidua, you're going to check it. Is where now the implantation normally takes place in the endometrium. So very good. That is what I wanted. The functional layer and the basal layer. So which one is shedded during menstruation? The functional layers, yeah? And they are the ones which are highly vascularized, right? Wow. Thank you so much. Eh? May God bless you abundantly for that kind of knowledge. Now, very good. Away from that, so let us summarize this one. We are already done. I just want you to know that let's say when the circular muscles, yeah, or this, I mean the circular smooth muscle. Remember, the smooth muscle has got two types of regime of muscles, right? We have Okay, something like smooth muscle, they form adjacent layer of most organs, like with the cells of one layer encircling the organ and the cells of the other layer running longitudinally. So that is why we'll always have somehow a circle and the longitudinal one, smooth muscle. So circle, smooth muscles, and like even in your gut, in the esophagus, they play a role there. So when the circular smooth muscle contract, it may propel content such as food through the organ. But when the longitudinal layer contracts, it makes the organ shorter, right? So the circular one will propel the food and substance in the organ. That is, for instance, if it is food, and then when the longitudinal will now contract, it will make the organ shorter, and that shortness, it will also make the organ thick, and therefore the transportation will be easy. So they'll be like helping in transporting it entirely. So by regulating the diameter of blood vessels, the smooth muscles is very important in controlling what we refer to as the blood pressure and the flow of blood at large. And I'm sure that one you're well conversant with. So both smooth and skeletal muscles will have sphincter that will control the emptying of the bladder and rectum. For that is an example. Like even in esophagus, we have a sphincter, right? And let me just come to that before I call this one, because I think I'm done with that. The entire nini is done. So I just want to show you some image, one image here and it's over. But before I go away, I want to ask you this. Like, what are some conditions that can make, okay, just tell me one condition that is brought as a result of the lower esophageal sphincter failing. Instantly, we have a patient coming presenting with a history of, yeah, you've related. And so I was talking, we have at the end of the smooth muscle organs, the organs which are back to the smooth muscle, we normally have sphincter. Example I've said, like rectum, bladder, and blah blah. So esophagus is also one of them, and the esophagus has got two sphincters: the upper sphincter and the lower esophageal sphincter, or what we call as the left. So what condition comes when the lower esophagus sphincter tone is damaged or is not responsive? That is the question. Bazu, Bazu, I have to see even if I was. Who are you? Let me see you, please. Umefunga Mark haraka. Ni Mark Maina? Oh, ni Dan Dioxide. Hey, Hartman is so late, my brother. Any other person? Hmm? Achalasia of cardia. Achalasia of cardia can come as a result of that. And remember, even achalasia can be congenital, can also be related to cancer. I just want the one which is directly connected to that one. It's a basic name. It is something which, heartburn is another lay part of it. You are right, but now, why do you say heartburn, for Christ's sake? Anyway, yeah, the mhm. Gastroesophageal what? Yeah, gastroesophageal reflux disease. That is what now you refer to as heartburn in layman. Because as much as the content of the stomach now cannot be controlled because the sphincter on the lower esophagus is not functional, the chimed content of the stomach will reflux back to the esophagus. And because of the acidity in the stomach, you feel as if you are burning. And because esophagus is next to the heart, so you feel as if you're burning on the heart. You see, that is why it came up to be heartburn. I think that is that up to now. We still have a long way to go. So you will decide on when you're coming back in the next class. Yeah, because before you go, I also need you to go and check on the following question. There are only three actually. I need you to be able to you check on what to do or what do nervous and muscular tissues have in common. What do nervous and muscular tissues have in common? I also need you to go and check what is the primary function of each of nervous and muscular tissue. Primary function. We have secondary and primary function. And that is question one. Question two, I want you to go and check what kinds of cells compose nervous tissue and how can they be distinguished from each other, right? And then the last question, I want you to name three kinds of muscular tissue. You describe how to distinguish them from each other and in microscopic appearance also. And you also need to state a location and function of each. So I've said you name the three kinds of muscular tissue, describe how to distinguish them from each other, and that is in a microscopic appearance, and also I need you to be able to state their location and function. And that is that. So in the next class, and before we go to that, I wanted to show you this. From your hand, you can see that image. That is what we were talking about in muscular tissue: skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and smooth muscles. And by this, I know you are able to see, right, from figure 5.26, the skeletal muscles, there is microscopic appearance. Long cylindrical, yeah, and branch cells, the fibers themselves, that is relatively parallel in longitudinal tissue. Striation, they have multiple nuclei per cell, rather than the other one, ziko na nuclear moja moja, au akona nuclei. So they are located near the plasma membrane. And when you talk about the representative location, you can see they are mostly skeletal muscle, mostly attached to the bones, but can also be in the tongue, esophagus, in the voluntary sphincter of the lips, yeah, the eyelid, eyelid ina mbalore hivyo. And then we have urethra as well, we have the skeletal, some of them are there, and anus also. And then the main function of the skeleton, I'm summarizing, helping body movement, facial expression, posture, breathing, speech, swallowing, vitu kama hizo. Hizo organ tu nimemention ndio nasema function zao, right? Like in speech, that is tongue, right? Swallowing, still tongue. Control of urine. So if you forget, you can just relate with the muscle where they found and get it. In figure 5.27, cardiac muscles, short branch cells, actually, you see they have myocytes. That is why they are short branch, the way I said. They are very less parallel in appearance in tissue section. And then striations, striations, intercalated disc, yeah, one nucleus per cell, centrally located and often surrounded by the light zone. And the heart, they represent the location of the heart normally, and the function is just to pump of blood under involuntary control. Then the final one, that is, and hiyo picha unaona hapo ni ya organ gani? Which organ is that? Hiyo iko na cross sectional cut. In figure 5.28, there's a smooth muscle wall of a small intestine. It's even written there. So yeah, they are short fusiform self-overlapping each other, non-striated, one nucleus per cell, centrally located. So they are usually found in the sheet of tissue walls, visceral, blah blah blah, hair follicle, involuntary sphincter. Also they are there, and their function to swallow, contraction of stomach, intestine, expulsion of feces and urine, labor contraction, control of blood pressure, and blah blah and all that. So that is that, and that is what calls for the end of today. So I want you to tell me when is appropriate for the next class so that I can prepare. And what is evening? You know, evening is so 8 p.m. Okay, so and then that is so good. Okay, we still have one way to go, so I'll show you what is next so that you can see what I mean. That is what is next: intercellular junction, glands, and membrane. And Nicole must attend this one. He even brought us these glands. You know, we have many things to do with all the glands like holocrine, apocrine, mesocrine. That is the reason why we studied the entire thing. So the great thing here is that you be present so that we adhere to this. So this is the last part of histology, and we have to tackle it together. Let me first stop the recording.